What's up, everybody? Welcome to this latest edition of Straight Shooter with yours truly. Reminding you that every Wednesday night from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I come on the airwaves of SiriusXM POTUS Radio Channel 124. Looking forward to talking to y'all Wednesday night. Looking forward to that show being heard and seen everywhere. For the moment in time, while this was on my mind, fresh off another beautiful weekend for myself, there were moments during this weekend that were not so beautiful. And one of those things that stood out was the memorial service, the homegoing of Reverend Jesse Jackson. And this was being held in Chicago and what have you. And a lot of people had their feelings about what was transpiring over the last few days, the dignitaries that showed up, former presidents who showed up to speak, former presidential candidates who showed up to speak, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot to get into. But before I do that, let me get right to it before I express my disgust. My utter disgust. Let me first play for you what Jesse Jackson Jr. had asked before the memorial services took place. Please look at this.
Do not bring your politics out of respect to Reverend Jesse Jackson and the life that he lived to these homegoing services.
Right.
Come respectful and come to say thank you. But these homegoing services are welcome to all. Democrat, Republican, liberal, and conservative, right wing, left wing, because his life is broad enough to cover the full spectrum of what it means to be an American.
Yeah.
We only ask people to come and be respectful in the context of the extraordinary life that he lived.
That was Jesse Jackson Jr., the son of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, speaking before the memorial service took place. Don't bring your politics here. We're celebrating the life of my father. We're putting him to rest. And this is how we want his homegoing to be. Nevertheless, there were an abundance of people who didn't listen to that. Some of them were former presidents. Some of them were somebody who came up short in the presidential election. And that is where we're going to go today. Because you know what? When you can't abide by the wishes of the families, of the family, of somebody as renowned as Reverend Jesse Jackson, specifically asking you to leave your politics at home, knowing their father and knowing what he would have wanted, you would think that people could oblige with a simple, direct wish such as that. Nevertheless, here's what we saw. Play this, please.
Each day we wake up to some new assault on our democratic institutions. Another setback to the idea of the rule of law. An offense to common decency. Every day you wake up to things you just didn't think were possible. Each day we're told by those in high office to fear each other and to turn on each other, and that some Americans count more than others, and that some don't even count at all. Everywhere we see greed and bigotry being celebrated, and bullying and mockery masquerading as strength. We see science and expertise denigrated, while ignorance and dishonesty and cruelty and corruption are reaping untold rewards every single day. We see that.
So let me just say, I predicted a lot about what's happening right now. I'm not into saying I told you so, but we did see it coming.
I'm glad she's smiling, because I'm not. As it pertains to President Obama and his choice words for the president administration in the White House, I'm not here to disagree with him. I think every word that he said is practically correct. I don't think that it's specific and directed solely to this administration or the GOP without it being able to be said about the Democrats and what the extreme progressive left was willing to do with people that didn't vibe with their vision of what America should be over the last several years. One could easily make an argument against them for that, but I'm not even here to get into all of that. What I'm trying to say is that those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, figuratively speaking. But if you're going to do that, let it be courtesy of Barack Obama, who was right on point with what he said. I don't think he should have said it on that particular day in that specific locale because the family of Reverend Jesse Jackson asked for that not to happen. But what he said wasn't false. Because we all know what I've said and how I feel about the manner in which this White House is elected to conduct its business. It's downright trifling half the time, juvenile, soulless at times. But it's not like we haven't been able to say that about the progressive left. And I say the progressive left because I'm talking about the extreme leftists that wanted people to get fired if you mispronounce the wrong pronoun. Don't get me started with that. But the Kamala Harris thing, I am going to tell y'all right now, I'm on the verge one of these days real soon of blowing a gasket. If I see that lady, figuratively speaking, in our face one more time talking about she told us so, it's pissing me off. Because it's implying that we didn't support her. Nearly 75 million people voted for her. You had a 107-day campaign. 75 million people almost showed up to vote for you. You had $1.5 billion to spend. We supported you. Why are you sitting at a memorial service in a church with number of black people around you talking to us about you told us so, like we didn't support you? I voted for her. Most black folks voted for her. What are you talking about? We supported you when you didn't necessarily earn our support. You didn't go through a primary. You didn't scallivant around the country earning our vote, knocking door to door. You didn't do that. You bypassed the primary. You were handed the presidential nomination for the Democratic Party once Biden stepped down. You had some people in the Democratic Party laughing about the fact that, you know what? We're glad that Biden stepped down when he did, because had he stepped away earlier, there would have been a primary. She wouldn't have been a Democratic nominee for the presidency. And after that, you know what? She wouldn't have had that opportunity. It wasn't us that went on The View. And when you were asked, is there anything different that you would do compared to what Biden did? I really can't think of anything. We didn't do that. You did. And we voted for you anyway. We told you to be aggressive, to stop being so damn loyal to Joe Biden, to making sure that you assuaged his concerns, and as a result, you were conducting yourself in a fashion that was non-offensive to him, more so than prioritizing getting as many votes as you possibly could to win the presidency, and you could thank him and you could take care of him later. We were telling you that. We were telling you to be more aggressive. We were telling you to be more assertive. We were telling you to remind people of your record. You were an attorney general. You were a senator. You were the reigning vice president of the United States. You had the credential. What were you being passive for? You didn't want to be disloyal. You didn't want to come across as being disloyal. But we found out in your book, after you lost the election. You didn't tell us all of that beforehand. You wasn't aggressive beforehand. You didn't push the envelope beforehand. Black folks still supported you. Why you keep standing in our face talking about you told us so? Like somehow, some way we went against you and we didn't believe you and we didn't support you. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. In some cases, against our better judgment. We still supported you. I say all of that because I'm sick and tired of us walking around passive and absorbing and stomaching this stuff that is flat out untrue. Black folks voted for Kamala Harris. Supported Kamala Harris. You didn't have to say you told us so. We knew, we still know. And we supported you. You yourself had to admit that you didn't campaign accurately or the right way. You keep leaning on 107 days that you had. You keep leaning on the fact that you were at a disadvantage. You still had $1.5 billion. You still beat Trump on a debate stage when you went up against him. You yourself said that you had more voters come out to vote for the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States in America than anyone in history. Why do you keep saying you told us so? It's very annoying. It's not fair to us who supported you. It's not. And then we find out how candid and in your face and unapologetic you could be when it's time to sell your book, but not when you're running for the presidency. Come on now. We've been supporting you. We've been spewing your credentials. When they tried to minimize you, your intellect, your accomplishments, or anything in between, we jumped up and defended you. Why are you telling us, I told you so? Like we did you wrong. We did not. What you gonna tell Jesse Jackson Jr.? He asked y'all not to engage in the politics, right? Y'all think I'm just saying that? Listen to Jesse Jackson Jr. speak after the former president, along with former President Joe Biden, along with former Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States, Kamala Harris. After they spoke, listen to Jesse Jackson Jr. speak about them.
Yesterday, I listened for several hours of 3 United States presidents who do not know Jesse Jackson. He maintained a tense relationship with the political order, not because the presidents were white or black, but the demands of our message, the demands of speaking for the least of these, those who were disinherited, the damned, the dispossessed, the disrespected, demanded not Democratic or Republican solutions, but demanded a consistent, prophetic voice that at no point in time ever sold us out as a people. And it speaks volumes about who the Reverend Jesse Jackson was.
They could have easily leaned on that message from Jesse Jackson Jr. to make their points. Instead of getting political and resembling at least to, in a non-profane way, similar to James Carville, who proudly suffers from Trump derangement syndrome, as he says he has it and he hopes to get even more infected by it. You just wonder why people had the inability to avoid doing that at Reverend Jesse Jackson's memorial service. I know it's hard, times that we're living in. Being black, seeing an administration that no matter what they do, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, seems to not be thinking about our community at all. Hell, I don't blame anybody if they came out and say, that they remember our ancestors and the things that they had to endure. And they have this belief in their heart that based on what they're seeing and the soulless approach that this administration and so many people who cater to it, that there's this innate belief that there's an aspiration to return to those times. I don't blame them feeling that way one bit. Find myself feeling that way too sometimes. Most times. But it doesn't mean that you ignore the wishes of a family mourning the loss of their father, their husband, along with various other loved ones. It doesn't mean that you put your own individual agenda at the forefront at the expense of a family's public wishes. An inability to do so certainly doesn't make you indecent or anything like that. What it does mean, however, is that your thought process is so warped at that particular moment in time that you just couldn't help yourself. And if you just couldn't help yourself, maybe, just maybe, that's the reason he's back in the White House to begin with. Because you couldn't help yourself from restraining yourself emotionally. That played yourself. And you played yourself right into his hands, doing the kind of things that he wanted you to do, that he knew would ultimately work against you and would work for him to get him returned to the White House. I only bring this up because there's a midterm election coming. I only bring this up because we're only 2 years away from a presidential election. Time is flying by quickly. What you gonna do? Are you gonna learn to compose and restrain yourself? Or are you just gonna ignore all forms and request for decorum? And just say what you want to say and do what you want to do and not think about the repercussions. Something to think about. Something to think about.